Alright, so Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley just got announced, and man, this one caught a lot of people off guard. First off, Usman is finally back, and it feels like he's been MIA since like forever. I mean, after that close decision loss to Hamza, he kind of like disappeared. There was like hardly interviews at first, no media pushes, no hints of a suddenly return, just radio silence. I mean, eventually he started his podcast with Henry, but he was still up in the air, not really giving a solid point of when he was coming back. He just said, stay tuned, you know? And now suddenly, boom, he's booked against a red hot Joaquin Buckley, and that's a wild matchup. Now let's talk about it, because this isn't an easy comeback fight. I'd even go as far to say that the odds are heavily stacked against Kamaru in this one. And look, I'm not saying that he doesn't have a path to win. Now, if this was prime Usman, I feel a lot more confident. You remember that version? Calm, calculated, great cardio, solid jab, amazing cage control. That guy was a nightmare to deal with, but we're not seeing that same fighter anymore. The version of Usman that's walking into fights has taken damage, lost some of his explosiveness, and isn't shooting for takedowns the way that he used to. And speaking of Buckley, this dude is on the rise. He's not just a flashy knockout guy anymore. He's the guy who's starting to put the full game together. He's more measured, his striking is sharper, and he's a physical powerhouse. The way he's been managing distance, stuffing takedowns, and mixing encounters, the dude is dangerous, man. And stylistically, he's younger, fresher, and a lot more comfortable in the striking exchanges right now. And look, man, the reason I've got my doubts about Usman is pretty simple. Yeah, I'll give him credit for his last performance against Hamza. It was actually pretty solid. Like, he took that fight on what, less than 10 days notice, and still went in there, survived the early storm, and dealt with insane wrestling pace, and kept it competitive. That's no joke. But the problem is, that was almost like what, 2 years ago now, and we all know how this game works. Father Time is undefeated. You can only fight for so long. And it's not just Usman we're seeing fade a bit. Look around. Henry Cejudo, Israel Adesanya, Kobe Covington. All these top level guys that used to be the standard, they're all taking L's right now. They're on skits. Their timing looks off. They're not pulling the same trigger the same way. It's like the quiet changing of the guard is already happening, and nobody's really acknowledging it, you know? And Buckley, he's part of this new wave. Say what you want about him. He's flashy, aggressive, yeah, but the dude has been proving people wrong lately. He just beat Covington. And okay, Covington was kind of washed at this point. I'm not gonna lie. That win doesn't carry the same weight that it used to. But what really makes people pay attention is the fact that Buckley also been knocking out names like Wonder Boy and Vicente Luque. These aren't just hype builds. He's stopping guys that are legit strikers, dudes who have been around, who've seen everything. So yeah, I'm not writing off Usman completely, but I can't ignore how sharp Buckley's look lately. He's explosive, he's confident, and most importantly, he's active. He's in rhythm. Usman's coming back after a long layoff with aging knees and miles on the clock, and stepping into the cage with a guy who's hungry to break into that upper tier. That's a dangerous combo. Now, with all that being said, let's talk about why I believe Buckley beats Kamaru Usman. And I don't mean squeak by or edge out a decision. I mean why he could actually take over the fight and make a real statement. First off, let's just talk about the timing. Buckley is in that sweet spot right now. He's active, he's sharp, and more than anything, he's figuring out who he is as a fighter. He's not just a spinning knockout guy anymore. That used to be his identity, right? Just to highlight real stuff. But now he's mixing up his game. He's fighting smart, and he's dangerous. Over 3 rounds, not just for a flash second. Meanwhile, Usman is in a completely different phase of his career. The guy is 36. He has serious injuries with his knees for years. Like, we've all heard the stories. He can't run. He can't really train like he used to. And now he's coming off back-to-back losses and nearly 2 years of inactivity. And listen, man, I don't care how elite you were. That's a rough setup. And let's be real here, man. Usman's game was built on pressure, pace, and physicality. He used to just walk guys down and get them to the cage and either beat them up or take them down and break them. But he hasn't been that guy in a minute. Even against Leon in their rematch, you could tell that he wasn't pulling the trigger the same way. His setups felt slower. He wasn't reacting as well. And then you throw him in a last minute fight with Hamza, and yeah, he hung in there, but he still lost. And listen, man, Buckley is built to punish hesitation. You're slow on the jab, he'll counter you. You try to clinch lazy, he'll explode out of there and hurt you. He's not gonna sit back and let you coast or find your rhythm. He's gonna force the issue. And stylistically, man, this is the kind of trap fight for Usman. Because if Usman can't take Buckley down, and I'm not saying he won't even try, but if those knees are really shot as we think they are, and the wrestling entries aren't there, he's stuck in a striking match with a faster, more explosive dude with knockout power. That's a bad recipe. Usman's boxing looked good for a stretch, don't get me wrong, but it was always built off the threat of the takedown. When that threat fades, the jab and the right hand don't land the same way. People start timing you, and Buckley has that insane reaction time when it comes to reading rhythm. One specific reason why Buckley's boxing and kicks are gonna give Usman's problem because of how explosive and fast his mid-range bursts are, especially off reset. And man, Usman's striking has been very methodical. It's clean, it's fundamental, jab, jab, straight right, keeps that high guard tight, but it's built around a certain rhythm. He needs to get the pace going. He needs time to establish control, get his jab working, move forward, and fight at his own tempo. He doesn't do well when he's forced to consistently react or reset awkwardly. And Buckley, he's a nightmare for a guy like that because Buckley doesn't let you settle in. You think you're safe after throwing a jab, you think you're gonna reset and circle calmly, boom, Buckley's already blitzing in there with 3-piece combo, or ripping a brutal body kick, or he's faking high and going low. He thrives in those moments where most fighters are thinking, okay, let's slow things down. He speeds it up. You saw that perfectly when Buckley fought Vicente Luque. Every time Luque thought they were in safe range, Buckley would explode out of nowhere with wild, powerful shots. It wasn't always the cleanest boxing in the world, but the speed and power overwhelmed Luque, and his volume got completely shut down because he was too busy bracing for the next blitz. Same thing happened in the Wonderboy fight, and Wonderboy is the master of managing distance. That's literally his whole style. Make you miss, stay at the perfect range, punish mistakes, but even he got rattled because Buckley was mixing in his kicks and his hands were so unpredictable. Low kicks, high kicks, suddenly overhand, no big windups, no telegraph, just explosive violence, offense out of nowhere. Wonderboy had to move weirdly, adjust his stance, and eventually started getting caught because of how much Buckley was forcing the exchanges. Now apply that to Usman today. This isn't 2019 Usman anymore. This isn't the guy smoothly jabbing and slipping into takedowns. This version of Usman is slower on his resets. He doesn't move lateral as well. We saw that in the Leon rematch, and he's way more reliant on keeping a predictable tempo. You start throwing explosive combos and fast kicks at him, he's either gonna shell up defensively or get caught in no man's land trying to counter slower than he used to. And the problem is, once Buckley senses hesitation, he's doubling down. He's not gonna play safe once he smells blood. He's gonna throw in the pocket. He's gonna load up on wild hooks. He's gonna crash into you with flying knees. Usman needs space, control, and clean exchanges, and Buckley's gonna do everything possible to deny him of that. That's why I generally believe that Buckley's boxing and kicking game is going to cause major issues. It's not just that he's younger or fresher, it's that his style is literally designed to disturb a fighter like Usman who needs things to slow, methodical, and structured. And once that structure breaks, it's open season. Now you're probably asking, Usman can just out-wrestle Buckley. But I'm telling you right now, Buckley's not getting out-wrestled by Usman. Let's be real. Buckley's a massive 170. The dude is built like a damn fridge. Stocky, strong, low center of gravity. He's not the type of guy you just ragdoll. If Usman's banking on old school takedowns, dominance to cruise through this fight, he might be in for a rude awakening. It's gonna be a stand and bang fight. That's what I've been trying to tell you guys. Now look, I'm not just going to sit here and act like Usman has no path at all, because he absolutely does. Even with the age, even with the mileage, even with that long layoff, there's still a blueprint for how he can beat Buckley. The number one thing is Usman has to fight like a veteran. He can't go out there and try to trade explosive exchanges with Buckley. That's a death sentence. He's got to slow down the fight, make it ugly, make it boring if he has to. So I'm talking about pinning Buckley to the fence, make him carry his weight, pepper him with short shots inside, literally suffocating the explosiveness out of him round by round. Because here's the thing, as dangerous as Buckley is, he's still not the most composed fighter when things get messy. If you clinch him, grind him, mix in some sneaky level changes, even if you're not finishing takedowns, you start dragging him into deep waters. You can make him question if he can keep that pace for 3 to 5 rounds. You frustrate him. You make those explosive bursts start to slow down. Usman's experience and his fight IQ, that's where the advantage still leans heavily towards him. He's been through 5-round wars, he's faced elite pressure fighters, tricky strikers, world-class grapplers. He knows how to win rounds, even when the fight isn't pretty. Another key, work the body. Buckley's built like a tank like I mentioned earlier, but all that muscle needs oxygen. If Usman can rip the body early, knees in the clinch, short hooks when they break up, he can start sapping Buckley's gas tank. And if you take away Buckley's explosiveness, his power is still there, sure, but his volume and speed drop off fast. And the last thing, Usman needs to stay disciplined. No wild brawls, no emotional exchanges, no getting baited into a prove a point. Keep the jab tight, move Buckley backwards, clinch when you can, and chip away at him as much as you can. If Usman can drag this into the second half of this fight without taking big damage, his odds go way up, especially if Buckley starts slowing down or starts getting desperate for a finish. But man, this is the honest truth. When you really step back and look at it, man, it just feels like Buckley's gonna catch him. And not necessarily with one big, clean knockout shot. It could be the accumulation, it could be the speed, it could be the pressure, it could be that relentless, uncomfortable feeling of fighting a guy who's just sharper, quicker to the punch, faster on the draw, more explosive in those tiny little moments where Usman's slowing down by half a second. Because that's all it takes in a fight. One hesitation in exchange, and Buckley's the type of guy that will make you pay for it hard. And that's when it gets tough to be optimistic. Usman isn't coming in this fight active, fresh, sharp. He's coming off injuries, surgeries, long layoffs, mental wear, and tear after back-to-back losses. Meanwhile, Buckley's in rhythm. He's getting better in every fight. He's hungry. He's looking at Usman not like as some legendary mountain he has to climb. He's looking at him as dinner. And that hunger, that explosiveness, that momentum, it's hard to pick against it right now. It really is. I'm rooting for a competitive fight. I'd love to see Usman come out and shock everyone. Maybe even drag Buckley into deep waters. Maybe remind people why you never really count out a former champ. But if I'm being real, this just feels like Buckley's moment. It feels like the passing of the torch. And it feels like Usman might just be walking into a younger man's storm that he just can't weather anymore. It's brutal, but it's the reality of the game.